It is 8:18. Let's turn back now to our top story and the 14-day ceasefire between the United States and Iran. Right now, ships are once again passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and Iraq has based a militia has signed off on this ceasefire. It allows Iraqi airspace to reopen for travel across the Middle East. Israel, however, is only partially agreeing to this ceasefire. Israel has continued to strike targets in Lebanon, including the central Beirut area this morning. Now, Pakistan, who brokered this deal, suggested Lebanon was included under the current ceasefire. Meanwhile, long-term peace talks beyond the next 2 weeks, they're tentatively scheduled for Friday in Islamabad. So a lot of moving parts here, a lot to unpack. To help us break down the current deal, including its scope and impact to global allies, is James Townsend, as former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for European and NATO Policy and a current Senior Fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Jim, thank you so much for being with us.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Look, let's start with this. How fragile is this ceasefire agreement? What does it actually look to accomplish in the short term?
Well, ceasefires are always fragile, so we're going to be holding our breath for the next few days. But the ceasefire, in terms of what we want right now, is to have a cessation in terms of the bombing that's being done in Iran, but also the missiles that are being fired from Iran into the regional countries, and particularly, we want to see that the Hormuz Strait is open and that ships are able to go through without any issues. So at least on those two elements, that's what we want to see. And we're watching right now to see if that's going to come into play.
Look, yesterday, what a roller coaster of a day where people were watching. Strong words out of President Trump about what would happen if the strait wasn't opened, and then this ceasefire that was a surprise. And maybe I could ask you, was it a surprise that we learned about this? What likely went on behind the scenes here? What concessions might have been made by both the U.S. and Iran for this to come together like it did?
Well, it's a great question, and I don't think we're going to get a lot of that backstory, which has got to be a Hollywood movie, frankly, in terms of probably the intense back and forth going on between, not necessarily between the U.S. and Iran, but between intermediaries like Pakistan. Even China got involved. My understanding is that the Chinese talked to the Iranians and said, show some flexibility here. So I think there was a lot of movement in terms of at least agreeing that the terms that the Iranians had come up with, that was a basis for negotiation. And once the U.S. said, and I think it was the vice president, said that this is something we could work with, that was all that was needed as far as the president was concerned. And he said he'll pull back whatever plans he had. He was going to pull those back and let this 2 week ceasefire go ahead so we can put some some fat on the bone, if you will, to just see what is behind these points that the Iranians have presented to us.
So speaking of fat on the bone here, Jim, let me ask you, what are both sides looking for as they meet in Islamabad?
Well, both sides are looking for the other to agree to their points. Both sides are going to come to the table with what I call the full loaf. They're going to come with the full loaf, and they're going to say, "This is what we want," and then they're going to try to, if they want to compromise and get a peace, they're going to have to work out compromising and moving towards the center. There's some red lines for the U.S., and certainly one of those is the Straits of Hormuz and keeping that open and maybe not having a toll, although the president has talked about a joint venture to do that. But that aside, and Iran is going to say, "When we don't want to be attacked anymore, and you're going to have to pledge that you're not going to attack us anymore." Can the U.S. agree to that? Can Israel agree to that? So I think right now we're starting off pretty far apart, and they're going to have to sit down in Islamabad and try to work towards the center. And it's going to take a while. I think it's going to be more than 2 weeks.
So, look, I don't know how much time we have left, but I got to ask you this. This is the effect here at home. It's been fast and it's been furious if you try to fill up your tank. Also, the global markets, they seem to be on a roller coaster as well. What strains have you seen as far as the allies here, NATO allies and other U.S. partners, and what we're going through here at home?
Well, the important points, I think. What's happening at home on this? Well, I think there's been, to begin with, just a lot of anxiety among both allies and Americans at home of what's the next 24 hours going to look like. So I think there's some relief now on both sides that there's a ceasefire at least for 2 weeks and a way ahead. So we'll see what that looks like. I think the gasoline prices are going to slowly come down. Not a whole lot over time, but they're going to start moving down pretty soon if they feel that these talks actually might present something. For the allies, they're going to have to look on. So, how can they help out when it comes to the ceasefire and whatever might follow? Can they help keep the Straits of Hormuz open? Can they do other things to reassure regional players, the Gulf states, that don't worry, we've got your back. We're going to be working this. You're not alone in terms of dealing with Iran. So there's a lot of reassurance that's going to have to be done, and the allies will play an important part there.
Jim Townsend is a senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Thank you so much for joining us with your insight. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.